My name is Barbara Ast. I have learned Psalm 144, Perek Kuf Mem Daled, in memory of Sara Lamm Dratch, Sara Rivka Bat Harav Nachum Umindel, Le'ilui Nishmata. Before Sarah and I became mishpacha, when Sarah's brother married my sister, we were classmates at Stern College and graduated together in the class of 1982. Looking at our yearbook, even as a student, Sarah had a wide range of interests. She was involved in the Drama Society, the Senate, a writer for the student newspaper, and a member of the Psychology Honor Society. In the yearbook, each student chose a quote that spoke to them. Someone chose a quote from Mishlei, someone else from Hamlet. Sarah's was Zel Gerutten, and in parentheses, you should grow, which she attributed to her maternal grandmother, Tilly H. Mailer. I asked a Yiddishist what that meant, and he explained that Zel meant you should be, it should be, Gerutten, routine, normal. In other words, things should be uncomplicated. I called Mrs. Lamm to ask her to put the quote in context, and she described a more figurative use of the words. Mrs. Lamm's mother, Sarah's grandmother, Tilly Mailer, born in America but fluent in Yiddish, would recite that phrase as she placed her bread and cakes into the oven to bake. Zel Gerutten, the bread or cake should grow in the oven and be satisfactory. Mrs. Lamm explained that Sarah loved her grandmother. In fact, she named her first child, Tova Tilly, after her. Withstanding everyone making light of it, Mrs. Lamm told me that Sarah too would recite this saying before putting her own baked items into the oven. This quote resonated with me in context of Psalm 144. First, a little introduction to Psalm 144. This psalm was written once David HaMelech achieved victory against his foreign enemies. He acknowledges that his skill in war was divinely directed. LeDavid, Baruch Hashem, Suri Hamelamed Yadai Lakrav, Etzbotai LaMilchama. A psalm of David. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. And again in verse 10, Hanotain Tshua LaMelachim, Hapotzeh David Avdo Mecherev Ra'ah, who gives salvation unto kings, who rescues David, thy servant, from the hurtful sword. He refers to the Cherev as Ra'ah, the evil sword. David longs for the day when he can sing a shir chadash, a new song to Hashem, in which he is free from having to wield the evil sword. A life for the nation that is defined by prosperity and growth under God's protection and guidance. Verses 12 to 14 describe David HaMelech's perfect world. Verse 12 reads as follows: Asher banenu kinetiim, migudalim benu rehem, benotenu kazaviyot, mechutavot tavnit hechal. We whose sons are as plants, grown up in their youth, whose daughters are as corner pillars, carved after the fashion of a palace. The first pasuk in David HaMelech's perfect world is one which focuses on our children. He uses the metaphor of plants and palace cornerstones to describe a flourishing family. Hirsch explains that our sons should be like niti'im, cultivated plants that are nurtured, and attention is paid to their development, not wild growths that sprout up without care or supervision, who are migudalim benu rehem, already trained in body and spirit to be like grown men while they are still young. In other words, our sons should be like strong, well-rooted young trees, which as saplings already show promise for great things. Hirsch explains our daughters are as zaviyot, as nooks, the part of the building that is structurally important to a building, but not intended to be seen at first glance, the cornerstone of the building. Hirsch says that David wishes for our daughters to be like the cornerstone of a building, to be an integral part of life, yet modest and out of glare of the public. While this may be true of many Jewish women, Sarah was an exception to the rule. She was not one to sojourn in the corner, unnoticed by all. Her shining personality could not go unnoticed. Since Sarah was a member of the Stern College Dramatic Society and had a natural flair for performance, I thought I'd bring another outlook to this pasuk. Rabbi Stanley Crampman of St. Louis, Missouri, reminded me of a reference from the long-running off-Broadway play The Fantastics. In the lyrics to the Fantastic song, Plant a Radish, The actors sing a song about the uncertainties of raising children as compared with the reliability of vegetable gardening. Plant a radish, get a radish. Plant a turnip, get a turnip. They're dependable. They're befriendable. They're the best pal a parent's ever known. While with children, it's bewildering. You just don't know until the seed is nearly grown just what you've sown. So when David HaMelech wishes that our sons be kinetiyah, he wishes for our children to grow reliably as a young plant. If you nurture the seed that you plant and care for it as it grows, you know you will reap the harvest that you sow. If you give children the right nurturing, plant a radish, get a radish, zel gerutin. They should grow in an uncomplicated manner. There should be no surprises later in life. As for our daughters as zaviyot, the stones of a foundation and the midwall of a building are concealed, while the stones of the surface of the wall are visible, but they're not distinguished. The cornerstone of a building, which resides in the most prominent corner, attracts attention, especially in the days of David HaMelech, when the cornerstones were richly ornamented and polished. Placed at the angle of the structure where two walls met, it served the very important purpose of upholding the weight and burden of the building. In David HaMelech's ideal world, the young females of the nation are equally represented by their position and distinguished character. Daughters unite families as cornerstones join walls together, and at the same time they adorn them as polished stones garnish the structure into which they are built. They are not represented by a metaphor derived from the hardier tenants of the forest, the trees, but they are shown to us by a representation taken from the perpetual accompaniments of the dwelling. They are the supports and the ornaments of domestic life. They are the structure or foundation of a Jewish home, the glue, so to speak, that keeps a Jew's private family life together. Sarah's focus in life was her beautiful children, Tova, Sam, Yali, and Bobby, nurturing them through life's complications so that they grow to be strong, confident adults. And just like Tilly Mailer blessed her baking with zel gerutin, it should grow and be satisfactory, the psalmist is praying for a similar blessing for our children. I know that Sarah is up in Shamayim, being a melitz yosher for her children, that zel gerutin, they should grow to be strong, confident children, and life should be uncomplicated for them.